Hey, Tamara, I just got a message that I'm logged in or I was logged out because I'm logged in somewhere else. Did you guys get anything with that?
No, I haven't seen anything for you, Councillor Jolly.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm here.
You're here.
Natalie, I just sent you a chat.
Oh, thank you. I don't think anything is happening over here.
Just in case.
It's great. I've got 2 kids isolating, so I don't see them at all anymore.
Still makes it difficult, I would imagine.
It's challenging. Yeah, they're getting tired of being stuck in their rooms in the backyard.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Good.
The timing of this meeting ended up working out really well.
Did it?
Well, just with the new order on Friday.
Oh yeah, that's true. Still bringing your motion forward, Ken?
Well, I think we should discuss it, yeah.
I think so too. Would you call it the other day a moot point? But eventually we'll have to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're just gonna, I don't think we're gonna just jump into full operation in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Is anyone watching Jesperson this morning?
I did
Not
for a
yet.
little bit. I had to turn it off.
He's like just crazy, livid.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Your tweet and Facebook post this morning were good, Kathy.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I thought, oh, if I'm going to do this, it's going to get torn apart on social media. But
Nah.
I was worrying about that, and actually, the reaction's pretty good.
Yeah.
Kathy, just give you a heads up. Dax isn't doing well, so I might have to bug out really quick here.
What's going on?
Just getting old.
Oh, poor guy.
I mean, I'm not going to have to run him in right away, but I just have, my office is downstairs, and he's kind of upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, downstairs. It sounds like an old sitcom, but so I may have to cut in and out just in case you're wondering.
Yep. Just either put it in the chat or even just verbally say it. That's fine. You took him to the vet. You took him to the vet Thursday, right?
Yeah.
All right, it's 10:45. Let us begin. I'll call the May 3rd meeting of the Emergency Management Advisory Committee to order. Attendance at the start of the meeting is 100%. On our committee is Councillor Jolly, Councillor Mackay, and myself. Any changes to the agenda from either members of the committee or from you, Kevin or Percy?
I don't believe we have any, no.
We're good to go as is. Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda then? Thank you, Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, that the May.
No,
Sorry.
Yeah, read
No,
it in.
if you just want to adopt it, that's fine too. that the May 3rd, 2021 agenda be adopted as presented.
All right, thanks. Call for the vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. And then the minutes, we haven't met, wow, since November 24th. Oh, and January 29th, sorry. Any problems with the minutes that you guys noticed? All right, Natalie, do you want to adopt those together?
Sure, if I can find my agenda quickly. Ken, if you have that, go ahead.
It's in the chat.
It's in the
It's
chat.
in the chat? Okay. That the January 29, 21 Emergency Management Committee meeting minutes are be adopted as presented.
November 24th and January 29th. Is that not right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. November 24th as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Call for the vote. Those two are adopted. All right. Percy, I think we're handing it over to you, I assume, for the situation update.
Yes, and I will be sharing the screen here for you as well. And
The
really,
ever-evolving situation update.
exactly, it's a moving target, quite definitely.
Yeah. Did you work all weekend, Percy?
Portions of it, quite definitely. The nice thing is the province has been in contact with us throughout this, so we've had some questions back and forth that we've been able to answer over the weekend and that as well.
Okay, well, I mean, the committee here appreciates everything you're doing, and maybe at the end of the meeting, you could mention some of the staff that did commit the weekend to work with you, and we'll give them kudos at the end. That would be good.
Mayor, just a question before we get started. Like we've
Yeah.
got the situation update and then we've got kind of discussions on different recreation amenities. Do you want to kind of do it by topic, or do you want to go through the presentation and then have a general question and answer and discussion?
Doesn't really matter to me. Do you have, I'm assuming the recreation update Diane's doing?
Yes, I would suggest maybe we do it by recreation amenity, like take a break in between.
One
and
at a
discuss.
time? I would prefer that. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, Percy, go ahead.
Well, realistically, really where we're at here is just to provide you an update on the current COVID situation with an update on the recreation points and current financial impact to the city from the pandemic. My screen's not advancing here. Here we go. Federally, all the provinces, Alberta currently has the highest rate of COVID per 100,000 and is the second highest total of case counts of active cases in the country. The rate per 100,000 is double the next highest rate, which is found in Ontario. And Statistics Canada has identified Alberta as having the fourth largest population of all provinces and territories. Comparatively, public health measures in Alberta have been and remain less stringent than other provinces. Varying provinces have enacted more severe measures such as curfews, stay-at-home orders, and travel restrictions. Internationally, in response to the COVID crisis in India, the Canadian government has recently committed aid to India along with other governments, as their COVID rates are significantly impacting their population and healthcare systems capacity. Nationally, the federal government has sent military and Red Cross support to Ontario to assist in dealing with their hospitalizations and ICU admissions due to COVID. This is to provide support and relief for staff currently dealing with hospitalizations there. On restrictions and lifting restrictions, Dr. Tam, the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada, has stated that with about 75% of the population vaccinated with first dose and 20% of adults fully vaccinated is the point where officials can start to ease the most stringent measures. Vaccine deliveries to the provinces continue with vaccines that have been procured by the federal government. With no domestic production of arriving vaccines have been delayed both by supply chain and other issues. Moderna shipments recently have been delayed. AstraZeneca doses from India have been suspended as they're dealing with their crisis there. The delivery of the Janssen vaccines have been delayed due to possible quality control issues. And while initially delayed due to factory retooling, the Pfizer doses are arriving and are arriving more so. The federal government has secured additional Pfizer doses to deal with the shortfalls in those other vaccines. In spite of the challenges that have been experienced, there's continued hope and confidence that Canada can obtain enough vaccine doses to provide at least one dose for every eligible Canadian by the end of June. So for the provincial context, the provincial data that was announced yesterday indicated the province has 22,920 active cases, which was an increase of 416 cases over the previous day, with a total of 1,731 new cases reported. This has been the fourth day in a row of record high numbers of active case count totals for the province since the pandemic began. The slide shows three images: the provincial active case numbers across the province, and you can see the different hot zones across there. Active cases in the province since the beginning of the pandemic, and also a 7-day moving average case count per 100,000 that compares Alberta, Ontario, and France, a country with similar rates of vaccine distribution to Canada. The active case count on that 7-day average for Alberta is increasing to those others that are shown. Variants have entered Alberta and now consist of 62% of cases provincially. And when you look at the Edmonton zone data, it's 68.8% of cases in our zone. At this point, if you're diagnosed as a COVID positive, your probability of having a variant case is more likely than the original, and you should presume that you have a variant. Variants have created challenges and uncertainty in the response to COVID. We have moved through a variety of restrictions and changes over the past year, and specifically over the last few months. We have seen that as the second wave of COVID was receding in Alberta, the province launched the Path Forward as a method to ease public health measures. Measures were first eased to step 1 in February, and then further to step 2 in March. The Path Forward was paused in April with rising active cases and hospitalization rates as the province initiated a return to step 1 of the Path Forward. Currently, the province announced additional measures affecting communities that have both 350 active cases per 100,000 population and 250 active cases total, commencing April 30th. These targeted restrictions are for 9 municipalities, of which are Fort McMurray, Red Deer, Grand Prairie, Airdrie, Calgary, Lethbridge, Strathcona County, Edmonton, and St. Albert. In addition to the targeted measures, the province has temporarily suspended their spring sitting of legislature for at least 2 weeks, and cabinet and committees will continue to work virtually. Vaccination is also a subject at provincial levels. Both the Chief Medical Officer of Health and Premier have described vaccinations as the way out of the pandemic and restrictive measures. Premier Kenney, on his April 12th update, described a path to recovery with a transition period and 3 stages. Stage 1, with 48% of the population immune, was projected to end at the end of May. Stage 2, with 64% of the population immune, was projected to end at the end of June. Stage 3, with 72% of the population immune, was projected to occur mid-September. Also, the Chief Medical Officer of Health had sent a letter to performance stakeholders on April 9th describing timelines for return to in-person audiences, and that was dependent upon pressures of the public healthcare system and progress of immunization. Both of those updates from the Premier and from Dr. Hinshaw predate the current increasing case counts, plus implementation of the expanded public health measures. Statistics for vaccinations posted on May 2nd are as follows. Provincially, 29.2% of the population have received at least 1 dose. and 6.6% of the population are fully immunized. In the Edmonton zone, 32.1% of individuals have received at least one dose, and 7.1% of individuals are fully immunized. So regionally and our local context, the number of active cases present in St. Albert are currently identified as 279 cases, or 409 per 100,000. Active case numbers for St. Albert are not as high as they were at the peak of the second wave, which was 391 active cases on December 20th. In the Edmonton zone, the following municipalities have been identified as meeting the threshold for becoming a hotspot with expanded restrictions. And we talked about those before: Edmonton, Strathcona County, and St. Albert. In the Edmonton zone, most municipalities are over 350 active cases per 100,000, with only Stony Plain and Morinville below that threshold. But all those others remain unaffected by the additional measures because they have less than 250 active cases total. The province expanded restrictions enacted affect the following. They affect schools, indoor fitness, indoor sport, performance, and recreational activities. These additional measures have precipitated closure of city-run indoor recreational facilities, and those are Service Place, Fountain Park Pool, Ainsdale, and Kinnex arenas. The additional measures also affect the Arden Theatre, which had not commenced in-person performances, as well as leaseholders of city facilities. The city was prepared to enact the restrictions at the end of day Friday with closure of facilities and communications through the city website, social media, and by contacting those with facility bookings. Additionally, the city has remained in communication with the province over the weekend to clarify those measures, as we talked about earlier. We continue to keep abreast of what's going on with the province through our meetings with Alberta Health Services, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and the Zone Medical Officer of Health for situation updates and what's affecting us. And we're also continue to communicate regularly with municipal partners and stakeholders. And that's it for this update. Did you have questions at this point, or did you want to continue along to the recreation update?
Let's go to questions. Hold on, just spanning. Councillor Jolly, Councillor Mackay. Nothing. Percy, any indication that we might be able to get vaccination rates for the city of St. Albert? I think we've asked. Yeah.
Yeah, we have asked for the province for that. We did get a reply saying they'll look into that and see about getting those for us. But that was kind of midweek last week.
Okay.
So.
And I know we do have a meeting coming up on May 17th, I believe. So we can probably ask again. Maybe they'll have it ready for us. I know if you hit 1,000 cases per 100,000 people, you can ask the province for a curfew. And I think the only municipality is Fort McMurray that's over that 1,000 at the moment. Is that true?
I believe there's a couple others that are over that measure, like Banff would be in that category, and I'm trying to remember. I think there's a rural county that was in that area as well.
So, in your networks with some of the other directors of emergency management, have you heard of requests for curfews yet?
Not specifically for that directly at this point in time.
And one last question, again, trying to draw your knowledge on your connections with your counterparts in the region about advocating for a more of a regional approach to these restrictions instead of municipality by municipality, as I'm sure you are aware. I said to the Gazette on Friday that it just makes it confusing. So I guess maybe it's a question for either you or Kevin. Is there conversations about regional approach, and can we enact a regional approach without provincial permission?
Maybe I'll take a first crack at that. So my understanding is, looking at the data, St. Albert actually has a lower case rate per 100,000 than many of our neighbors in the region, but because they have a smaller population, they can't surpass that 250 total cases, active cases threshold. So, I don't want to speak for other communities, but yeah, I did sense some concern in that, they got very high case rates, but they haven't met the trigger. Sorry, what's the second part of your question?
And I think I already know the answer, Kevin, but my question was, can we enact these restrictions at a regional
yeah,
regional
so we
weight?
don't have.
I don't think we can without provincial direction.
We don't have Mr. LaFleur on the phone today, but I'm not sure if Mara is around, but typically council would probably have to declare a state of it to do that. There may be some other ways to do it. Yeah,
each one of those councils would have to declare a state of local emergency, and then
that would be the most straightforward way. I'm just not sure if legal.
Yeah, I think I knew the answer to that.
Options.
Okay. I think I saw Ken's hand flash up for a minute. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do, Mayor. It just, you kind of, when you were talking about just an overall picture for vaccines, and I think we know this, but maybe just for the public's, we did attempt to get a vaccination center specifically into St. Albert. Is that correct, Percy or Kevin?
Yes, actually, that is correct. We did offer to our facilities for a vaccination site in the community.
And basically we weren't successful, or obviously we weren't successful, but was there any reason provided, or were they just going to stick with pharmacies and the major center? I believe it's Expo Center in Edmonton, right?
Yeah, they said they would stick with the pharmacies, but they also said they had staffing issues and staffing capacity issues that kind of limited the number of vaccination center sites that they could have. And that is why they opted for the Expo Center as a large site in the region. It's in close proximity to St. Albert, Strathcona County, and the other municipalities is what they felt.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Natalie, anything else?
Yeah, just really quickly, I know Ontario has started a vaccination program for people who are homebound. Has there been any chatter about that happening in Alberta?
They're in the kind of in our zone meetings and with the zone medical officer of health, there's been conversations about that, but not as a formalized program yet.
Okay, and is there opportunity to advocate for that for our homebound residents, or that's a big question, but
it's always an opportunity to advocate, but yeah,
absolutely. There's always opportunities to advocate, and there'll actually be an opportunity when this week, as well as into the future, when we meet with health on the 17th.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
okay. All right, I think that's everything, all the questions for the situation update. So the next thing on the agenda is recreation, which big conversation here. I spent the entire Coffee with Kathy talking about recreation yesterday, Diane. So why don't we do these one at a time? Let's start with Grosvenor Pool.
Sure. Good morning. I thought maybe what I would do is start with a quick little highlight of where we are, current state of rec facilities. Really brief.
Good idea.
So as Percy said last Thursday with the provincial announcement, all of our indoor rec facilities were closed quickly by end of day on Friday. So that's Service Place, Fountain Park, and again, McKinnick's Arenas were all completely closed. Staff worked diligently to manage all of the bookings and cancellation of all lessons and those kinds of things. So those facilities are buttoned up nice and tight, and We are still providing virtual and outdoor fitness programming because those are still permissible. Of course, all of our outdoor recreation facilities are still accessible and open. So that's playgrounds and trails and parks, our skate park, pickleball, tennis courts. Those all currently remain open. Also, our outdoor sport fields are able to be booked for practices and training. Games, of course, not permitted. So our sport partners are trying to manage a bit of a program on our outdoor spaces as best they can based on our current restrictions. So that's the state of where we are with rec facilities. So as outdoor recreation there are some restrictions, but it is allowable. We are planning for opening our outdoor recreation facilities. So couple of things that we look at when, just a reminder as we open our rec facilities. Next slide, please. We look at a few guiding principles that have helped us to make decisions as we move forward and reopening our facilities. So of course, outdoor facilities are generally seeing less restrictions than indoor. Therefore, priority is being given to our outdoor facilities. Facilities are brought back when they are ready using cost recovery to the best extent possible. We do consider what's happening in the region and what our regional partners are offering. We look at reopening facilities in alignment with what our user group needs are. So if a group is not offering a program and the facility is not required, we would not open. Impacts to service levels and resource capacity are considered, and we assess the organizational risk and responsibility in our reopening plans. And these were the principles that were set last year through the EAC. So we'll talk about Woodlands first. So Woodlands Water Play Park, one of our outdoor aquatic amenities. So our plans are to date based on current restrictions that are in place as of last Thursday's announcement. We are looking to open Woodlands Water Play Park on May 22nd, which is the long weekend, and would look to have the facility open until after the long weekend in September, which this would be our normal sort of operating season for the park. We would look based on current restrictions of offering it very similar to last year. So it would be spontaneous use only. We would have capacities as it is fenced. We are able to manage that. So we would be managing access and capacities through the gate system. So we would be having staff manage that so that within the particular site, we could manage 2 meter distancing between people or between households. Households can come as a group of less than 10, but have to be all from the same household. So we would offer it very similar to last year, and it is in accordance with the current measures. There is additional cleaning that we would be doing, and we are forecasting a budget of $128,000 to operate for the full season this year, based on an approved budget of $110,000. And the additional $18,000 is for additional staffing that we would need, an additional staff person, just to ensure that we are meeting all provincial health measures and manage the users in the space. So that's what we're planning right now, again, based on our current provincial guidelines and guidance. Any questions about Woodlands Water Play Park?
Ken, Natalie? Did you say if the change rooms and bathrooms would be open? Did I miss that?
So we'd have people come dressed, changed, ready to go. We will have washroom access, but not change room access.
All right.
Just too tight of quarters in there.
Okay. All right, thanks. I guess no questions on that one. I know people will be super happy to hear that. Yeah.
Yes, I think people are looking forward to that kind of opportunity. So, and we have staff who will make sure that it is a safe experience for our users. So moving on to Grosvenor Outdoor Pool.
Sorry, one more question, Dan. And maybe it's to Percy or you. Any evidence that chlorine kills the virus? I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Percy, do you have an answer to that?
So what they're seeing is there's less risk in some of those aquatic pieces than other areas, but they haven't really come out very definitively on it.
Okay.
I guess my comment, as a former utilities person, is we have to remember the chlorination is there for other things, and the chlorine is quickly consumed if other things are happening in the pool. So it shouldn't be, I don't think we should be considering it as a barrier for protection from COVID, because it's probably protecting from others.
Okay. I get asked that question all the time. I'm like, I don't know. All right, Grosvenor. So we do have plans in place to look at opening Grosvenor Outdoor Pool this year.
last year, we did not open it at all just based on the timing of restrictions and the length of the season. However, planning now, we could, we're looking at potential 2 different opening dates. We could open around the first week of June till the end of September, which is about our typical season that we would normally run. Based on the current restrictions, and again with pools, public swim is not allowed, but they are allowing lane swim and outdoor pools, which is different from indoor pools. We would be able to accommodate schools, potentially. Again, with some of the restrictions that just came up last Thursday with us, 7 to 12 online, probably not, but maybe elementary schools, so we'll have to look into that. And the schools right now they're not sure about field trips, so that one, but we could offer for schools. Swim clubs, so swim clubs we're being offered at Fountain Park. We could offer them as well at Grosvenor Outdoor Pool. And of course, private household bookings could be offered as well. So we would look at offering that length of season for about $105,000 is what we could operate based on a budget of $159,000. So costs are less because of the number of staff that would be required and also shorter hours based on what we can actually provide to the public. We'd also look at another option could be to just open for the summer, so July 5th to September 5th. If we open just in the summer, of course, schools would no longer need access to the pool, and swim clubs. Traditionally, swim clubs have not operated in the summer, the swim club that works out of Grosvenor. So we would look at lane swimming and private household bookings. We could operate for 2 months with a net cost of about $105,000 on the budget of $159,000. We would look at our, of course, enhanced cleaning. People would come. We've done a full staff have done an excellent job on a reopening plan in terms of people would come dressed as they have been for our indoor aquatics facilities. They would enter through a gate system. We would do reservations online with the lane swimmer or the household bookings. So we worked through a whole process to make sure that that's safe and with additional cleaning. If restrictions do ease and we could potentially provide public swim, we would try to accommodate as many people as we could. So we would balance that with private household bookings as well. So when we look at, I'm just talking about again, it will all depend on how restrictions go, but if we stay as is, and we are only allowed to offer the lane swim and the private household bookings, we look at offering the private household bookings for $80 an hour. So that would be one household who could come at one time based on restrictions. Through the month of June, we could probably accommodate 60 households, and through the month of July and August, 392 households. And again, that is based on no changes to the restrictions and not allowing, additional public swim or anything like that. Any questions about Grosvenor Pool?
Go ahead, Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I guess just for what it's worth, I would love to see a June 1 opening, especially with that lane swimming availability in there. So regarding lane swimming, the 3-meter distancing would not apply. It does not apply to outdoor facilities.
It does. So our lanes, again, it would be a reservation system, and we would only allow a certain number of people in the lanes, and they would be distanced.
Okay, so I'm visualizing Grosvenor. Does that mean we'd have like 2 lane swimmers at a time, or?
Sure. Actually, Sean Percival, our COGS manager, is online. I'll ask him to address specifically his plans for a lane swim.
Thank you.
Sean, are you there?
You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
No, it's my first YouTube appearance, so that was embarrassing. All right, so we would have the same setup at Grosvenor as we had at Landrex and Fountain Park in the fall, which was a double wide lane, which would be approximately 2.5, 2.6 meters wide. So it would meet the threshold for physical distancing in that context. And at Grosvenor, since it's a 5-lane pool, we would only have 2 double lanes, and we'd have a buffer lane in the middle to assist with entry and exit from the basin. So we're thinking initially of starting off with approximately 4 swimmers per lane. And very similar to last year when we opened the water park, in collaboration with our public health inspector from Alberta Health, we would choose a number we felt would be sufficient from a safety perspective, and we can always increase and decrease those reservation spots as the summer goes along. So similar to the water park where we increased our capacity last year based on our observations after the first few weeks, we would do the same and apply the same principles to Grosvenor as well. If we felt we could accommodate more, we would increase the number of spaces we could offer, if that answers your question.
It does. That's actually more than I was expecting. So that's great. Thank you. And I guess I'm thinking about the reentry principles, and this is going to apply both to Grosvenor and Fountain Park. That $80, is it kind of that 20% below cost recovery, same as Fountain, or?
Correct. So the $80 is the current rate to rent Grosvenor Pool if you were doing a birthday party or a special event. So that is the approved rate through our fees and charges. And it is about, if you look at it based on the hours, cost to hour to operate, it's about a 20% subsidy. But normally when we have pool rentals, not so much at Grosvenor, but at Fountain Park, there are other things happening at the same time. So the subsidy changes slightly based on what you can offer at the same time. However, for this one, that is at $80 an hour, $80 an hour for the household.
Okay, thank you. That's great. And my last question is probably for Sean again. For lane swimming, would we be like, I know it's not a long pool, but would we be putting people in the dive tank as well? Like I would go tread water for an hour kind of thing. What's available there?
Not initially, we wouldn't. So we have different options, to Diane's point earlier, provided the guidelines and the restrictions open up slightly. At this point, though, we would stick strictly to the lane swim concept of the counterclockwise motion in each of the lanes. So whether someone's jogging in a counterclockwise fashion or swimming in a counterclockwise fashion, it's not really my place to tell you how to swim. As long as you're following the rules, we're good. And then we'll see as things go along what else we might be given the opportunity to do.
Okay, thank you. Last question for you, Diane. Is that Kim Gluck in the photo? Maybe?
Oh,
that's all
no, I don't think so.
Okay, Councillor Mackay, any questions?
Yeah, just one, and I apologize. I had to do what I thought I had to do, or mentioned it previously. Just a comment in relation to the private rentals. So Diane, how many slots would that be? I mean, normally would you allow for the pool to be rented privately? The outdoor pool I'm referring to.
So normally Grosvenor Outdoor Pool, we have very minimal rental because we do public swim and lane swim. So it's very few a week. I would, I think 2 or 3, but I'll get Sean to answer that. So basically, this would be a very different program because we can't offer public swim in our regular programs. We would fill that slot with more household bookings, but normally pool rentals are very small. Sean, what's the number of household or pool rentals we would normally have at Grosvenor Pool on a normal year?
Yeah, it would be 1 per Saturday and 1 per Sunday. So only 2 a week, and that would apply to both our spring session and our summer session.
And Sean, are they 1 hour time slots?
They are, and we are looking at options for pool rentals in this case here. So, but yeah, it's traditionally 80 hours. Sorry, 1 hour for pool rentals. Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably ask the same question when you get to Fountain Park Pool as well as to what our availabilities are in a normal situation.
So when are we making a decision on the June 1st versus July 5th? Because I know you're not asking our committee and you're not asking council. I mean, I would lean towards what Natalie was saying because of the lane swimming. So what's your trigger to make this decision, and when can we let the public know?
Currently, our proposal is in with the EOC. So it's just a matter of EOC and EL having a review of it and then responding back. And again, the June 1st date is flexible. We do have quite a bit of work to get the pool up and ready to go. So we need to know fairly shortly if we can open, and then June, it'll be within the first week of June if we make that decision shortly. Kevin, did you want to add to that?
I'll just comment. I'll be talking about general finances of all the recreation amenities a little bit more on the financial costing slide for the Fountain Park Pool. So there'll probably be some more information.
Kevin, your mic is really cutting in and out. Or is that just me? Are you guys hearing that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll throw my headset on.
Thanks. Excited that Grosvenor is opening because maybe hopefully we can do the dog swim in the fall. That's my favorite part.
Councillor Heron, we just talked about that on the weekend. That is Sean's worst nightmare, is the dog swim. I personally love the dog swim, so Sean and I have this love-hate over the dog swim. So I said if you supported the dog swim, it was going to happen this year. So we have a little running joke going on with the dog swim. So we'll see how the summer goes and then decide from there.
So if they, and I'm going to be an optimist, I'm going to firmly believe that vaccination rates will remain steady, and that by June everybody will have their first shot as promised, and we will maybe have some public swim in July, August. So I'm going to just make an assumption that if that starts to be permitted, that will be favored over the family bookings.
Yeah, so our philosophy will be to try and accommodate as broad a public as we can.
Right.
So if we are allowed to have public swim, we would look to provide more public. We decide whether or not do we just do all public swim, or do we go back to a blend of public swim and household bookings and try and find the right balance to accommodate as many people as we can.
So how far out can you book your private household?
We were looking at a 1 week booking. So just giving, sort of a one or 2 week window so that if things do change, we would have some flexibility to respond.
Okay, good. All right, more questions? Go ahead, Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, just really quick. Do we have rates on lightning days that we usually kind of shut down for? Like, I know you said we could fit in 450 bookings or thereabouts, but would we say like 100 of those would probably be canceled?
Yeah. Councillor Jolly, great question. Of course, the outdoor pool is very much based on weather. So if we have a really hot summer, we can accommodate more days of use. I would say I could get back to you with you. We have all of the stats in terms of the actual numbers of days offered based on weather, those kinds of things. But you're right. The max would be 392. We'd probably never have that many good weather days to provide that full capacity. I would say we'd be lucky probably with a half to 2/3. And again, depending on weather. And also it's timing. So these slots are all based on 7 days a week, 7 slots a day. So during July and August, during like the weekdays, if people are working, we might not be able to accommodate a time during the day. So I'm sure evenings and weekends will be highly sought times. And during the day would probably be a little bit more open. So probably a good guess would be 50% would probably be the uptake. Again, based on weather.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll throw my 2 cents. I would also love to see the dog swim again, and don't tell Sean about the bubble bath we used to have at Fountain at Christmas time.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Sean. Okay, Canada Day. I think that's where we're at next.
Yes. So we are planning for Canada Day celebrations. And again, we're basing everything on our current restrictions that are in place. So currently based on any provincial guidelines, we're looking for, of course, July 1st is the proposed event date. We look to do some drive-in movies. So we're looking at 2 time slots would be registered. So people would register ahead of time. We'd look at some pop-up outdoor activities in the park. So roaming rec crew could be out with some activities. We would have roaming artists and performers popping up. So as people are enjoying the outdoors that day, there'd be some spontaneous activity that would be along our trails and our parks, not to encourage gathering, but more to just engage and provide some entertainment on that day in our parks. There could be some giveaways. So as we see kids in the park handing out flags and tattoos, those kinds of things. Fireworks would be pending restrictions, so we are looking at watching that very closely. There is a regional event again this year. Last year we had over 43,000 views on our regional event. This year there will be another regional event. No concert online, but they are doing activity books. There will be community profiles, and of course the mayor's message will be as well part of the regional event. Our approved budget for this event is $68,800. We're forecasting, of course, to be able to offer all of these activities within that budget. And of course, we do get, there's still grants, federal grants, that could offset the cost of delivering Canada Day. So we need to kind of make some decisions by June 1st as to how we want to move forward with this. And but staff are working hard and managing what can be done within the current guidelines. Any questions?
Any like toolkit or activity ideas for just doing a Canada Day thing within your own little neighborhood, like a bike parade or?
Yeah, sure. Danielle is online as well, and that's her staff that are looking at the Canada Day celebration. Danielle, would you like to provide some comments around any online activities or neighborhood activities?
Absolutely. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Mayor Heron. That's a great question. Part of what's going to happen in that regional digital activity book is really those kinds of opportunities of how you can engage with your family and do Canada Day activities within your home or your neighborhood, as well as, you know, we're going to also have some connection with block parties through community and social development, make sure we tie those pieces in. Our Canada Day team is a really cross-departmental collaborative team. So we've got lots of connections that way on how we can engage with our community and how people can enjoy Canada Day in a safe way this year.
Perfect. Awesome. Councillor Mackay, Councillor Jolly, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question there.
Okay.
Sorry, my hand's kind of blending into the sky over Big Lake there. And excuse me if you said this, sorry, I'm running up and downstairs looking after.
We understand, Ken, that's fine.
Very. Is it going to be at Rotary Park again? Is that where the drive-in movie, is that where you're planning on it, or where are you planning on it?
At Real Recreation Park, yes.
Okay, thanks. And I apologize again if you mentioned that in your first opening comment. The second one, Danielle, in relation to so you mentioned block parties, and I know in the past we've seen, we sponsored them with, I think, or we were able to actually obtain sponsorship for, hot dogs, some carrying some of the costs. Is that still planned, or is that part of a separate budget, or is there something specific for the July 1st celebrations?
I'd have to defer that to our colleagues in CSD because they run the block party program as part of their wheelhouse. So we certainly will link in with them and make sure we've got all the connections, and they might be able to give out tattoos and the Canada Day items through their block parties, but I couldn't really comment on how they're managing their program this year. Sorry. Okay.
I just thought maybe with the Heritage Grant, there was an opportunity to sort of sponsor some of that, but if that's tied into larger community celebrations, I understand, but just looking at if we have the opportunity on July 1st, as we're sort of hoping for, then maybe there's an opportunity to have a broader community celebration. So
I can pass that feedback, Councillor Mackay, on through our committee as well, just to pass that along to our CSD colleagues so they have that information as well.
All right, any more questions? All right, looking forward to that. Feeling like it might be somewhat normal. All right, Fountain Park Pool.
Okay, next slide, please, Percy. So as we are aware, currently Fountain Park is closed and our household bookings are no longer being offered. However, prior to Thursday's provincial announcement, the guidelines did allow for household bookings with only one household per booking at a time within the space. So some of the rationale around, but we spend a little bit of time talking about how we set the rates and what was happening with household bookings in the region. So administration has established the fee for household pool bookings at Fountain Park Recreation Center based on the net cost to provide the service. So based on our current restrictions and only having one household in at a time, it's about $220 an hour for staffing and for additional cleaning costs. So we chose the current rate of $175, which is our current rate to offer a leisure pool for private bookings as the rate that we would go with. Part of it was consistency. We have maintained all of our rates in our recreation facilities and programs through the pandemic, and so felt it was important to maintain our same rate structure moving forward. It was also based on, so normally we do have pool bookings that we would charge $175 for leisure pool. Typically it was for birthday parties and for special events, which yes, could accommodate more people. However, with the provincial restrictions, we are limited to one household, maximum 10 people. So if we are our planning around this was that we were still offering swim lessons. So we were having really good response to the one-on-one swim lessons as well as swim clubs. So we were offering the household bookings at Fountain Park within our current sort of service offering there. So we were only offering a total of 10 bookings per week. And again, because household bookings can't occur at any time when there's any other activity in the pool. So we were looking at 10 bookings per week, 80 households through May and June is what we were looking at in terms of being able to accommodate a household booking at that cost. When we look at our regional comparators, so as outlined in the chart, this is as of April 26th. Some municipalities have opted to not offer the service, such as Edmonton, Strathcona County, the Edmonton YMCAs, and Fort Saskatchewan. Some municipalities have decided to offer household bookings. So Leduc is offering it at $42 an hour, Tri-Leisure at $220, and the town of Beaumont at $85.50. So I'm happy to answer any questions about how the rationale around how we came up with the pricing and the number of the service offering that we looked at. Again, we were trying to find a balance between delivery of service and being fiscally responsible and being consistent with our other fees that we have charged throughout the pandemic.
Diane, just for clarification, I did call the mayor of Spruce Grove to ask about how the community reacted to the 220, and he said it was quite negative. So they actually are not offering swimming or like household bookings. I don't know if you have different information, but.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, Mayor Heron. We did follow up on that because I know that you had had that conversation. Yeah. So Kelly McConnell is on the line. He spoke directly with the facility manager at Tri-Leisure. Okay. And there was some pushback from swim clubs, I believe. But Kelly, would you like to comment on your conversation with Tri-Leisure?
Yes, I was in contact with the general managers there. They are offering the household booking. They're not actively promoting it, but they do offer it. And the statistic he gave me is they've had in a 45-day period since they started, they've had about 29 bookings of that. So, but that's basically where they're at.
I will text the mayor's Spruce Grove and let him know. And Dan, I appreciate this information coming today. When it was first announced, I think we all know how the community reacted. I was not intending to be critical, but it was I think it was the communication, and Natalie pointed out that probably the best way to overcome that was to have an EAC meeting like we are right now to really explain the true costs and that horribly hard decision in finding that right balance. And we're going to be faced with that tonight during council, which I think is going to be a great conversation about how comfortable we are with subsidization. But I mean, I really have no questions on this. I just appreciate the little bit of extra work you've gone through to give us the regional comparators and explain the whys of it all. I actually didn't realize that it was $175 to rent the pool for a birthday party. So again, you haven't changed the rate. So Councillor Mackay, Councillor Jolly, questions?
Well, I think we both do. But go ahead, Nat, if you were up first.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Thank you. So regarding, both bookings and lessons, are we giving priority to St. Albert residents?
We have not made any restrictions. Sean, I believe the one-on-one lessons, again, we had the resident first registration period for the lessons and then opened it up.
We did,
but
yes.
For the booking. So Sean, yes, that was correct?
Yes, for the one-on-one lessons, that's right.
Okay. And what's the uptake been like for both the lessons and the private bookings?
Sean, you want to respond to that, please?
Before we opened up the month of June, we had programmed one-on-one lessons to begin the week of March 29 and ending in the first week of June. And we actually saw a fill rate of just slightly over 73%, which was significantly higher than what we had anticipated. And we've just opened June. the 4 weeks in June within the last 2 weeks, and we are starting to see more registration as lessons are coming to an end. Unfortunately, now a bit more sooner than anticipated, but we did see a very strong response from the community when it came to the one-on-one lessons.
Okay, and similar for the private bookings, or?
We saw in the first 48 hours of the post going up on social media and the communications going out, I believe it was 4 bookings. And then subsequent to that, we had about, I believe, two to three more bookings occurring in the following week.
Okay, and how many do we offer in a week? Like, what percentage is that?
We would offer 10 spots over a weekend, 5 each day, Saturday and 5 Sunday. Okay. So we would have seen an uptake of 40%, I guess, fill rate for the first weekend.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is about the summer plans. So for lessons, I know normally the pool's packed with lessons kind of Monday to Friday. So are private lessons being planned throughout the summer? Or how is that being organized?
Diane, do you want me to do that one, or do you
want? Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to currently move ahead. The aquatics team is sort of planning maybe 2 to 3 different scenarios so that we're prepared to kind of run as soon as we get the go ahead. Right now, if restrictions were in place, we would offer one-on-one lessons morning and evening, similar to the previous summers when we would have lesson times morning and evening. And then we would also be looking at certain types of specialty programs that could be offered given the restrictions, though. It's a little bit complicated, but we've been able to do some programming of that nature, like first aid courses. So that's something we would look to plan to book in. And then around that, we would also look at private bookings, provided that was something that we continue to move ahead with.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is regarding the cost of lessons. Are those being subsidized kind of similar to the pool bookings, or are we seeing cost recovery for those?
Sorry, just trying to find my mic. So yes, we plan, all of our programs are based on cost recovery plus admin overhead costs. So they're not subsidized, they are the direct cost to operate that. Even with our one-on-one lessons, we're able to get enough utilization into the pool to be able to cover our hourly costs for that. Okay. Basic direct costs.
That's great. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, sorry again. I'm getting my exercise today. Thanks for, again, Diane, again, just to reiterate or echo the mayor's comments, thank you for all your work on this. And I like the mayor, I was unaware of what the hourly cost was to rent our pool in what I'll refer to as normal times. So lesson learned for me as well. When we started just the household bookings though, was it just to use the leisure pool? So the 175, there was no opportunity to use the smaller pool. I think what is the normal rent? 66, and then there's a middle one as well, correct?
Yeah, so the plan with the household bookings was, again, because you can only have one household in at a time, we took the 175 rate, which was a leisure pool, but of course they have access to all the pool basins. We did go back to AHS and asked if we could separate the pool basins and have a household booking in each basin. It was not allowable. So based on having one household in the full pool area, they are able to use all of the basins. So we were looking at the 175 as opposed to the smaller pool at just 66.
Okay. And when you have household bookings in both normal and then what was hopefully going to be planned, would you require the same amount of staff, whether you had ongoing other programming, whether swim lessons or other activities going on in the pool, both for what you would consider a normal year and then what we were doing up until this point?
So in a normal year, rental, so it's not necessarily household bookings, and then it's a rental that we would charge for 175 for the leisure pool. So in normal times, rentals will be very minimal. I think we have 2 a week, a one-time slot on a Saturday and one on a Sunday. It is really geared to birthday parties, major, like larger team events or those kinds of things. And so the cost does cover the pool rental, and potentially at times there could be people lane swimming or doing other things as well. So again, it's the other activities that can also be accommodated during a rental time. But with the current restrictions, we are very restricted and can only again have that one household in the facility at a time.
But if that time slot, you would probably cross over between offering individual swim lessons and then move into a 1 hour booking for a household time slot. Do you require the same number of staff?
I can defer to Sean on this, but basically, so I'll start off and then Sean, I'll have you jump in. So rentals in normal times, rentals are fit in around the other priorities. So a priority is around public swim, lessons, where we can provide the greatest number of programming and offerings to the community. So rentals were provided during sort of those non-peak times. And again, as more or less times when we know that the pool wasn't as busy, so we offered them in place of that. But Sean, do you want to jump in and speak to the number of staff required during a normal year when we would have rentals?
Yeah, so they're actually quite comparable to what we've proposed for this current private household program versus, I guess, pre-COVID. It would very much depend on the number of people coming in the rental, though. So we have certain capacities that we've established within the facility, at which point if we exceed a certain number, we have to add additional staff, primarily on the lifeguard side of things for safety and supervision of the pool. On a very basic, Sunday when we have rentals, we may have, 3 lifeguards scheduled to facilitate the rentals, as well as Diane mentioned, the lane swimming and the hot amenities. So it's pretty close, but it's very dependent on the numbers in each rental when it came to pre-COVID staffing, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Sean. I'm just seeking clarification, and I'm not like Natalie. I only had relatives work in the pools. I never ever did it myself. So this is just, I'm taking the opportunity to learn. But the way we were gonna, or the proposed household bookings, we were going to block off specific, like 5 and 5, I believe Diane said. So 5 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday. So there was a little bit easier planning, actually, in the sense, was that going to be really the only activity that was going to be occurring in Fountain Park at that particular time?
Yes, because again, with the restrictions, household bookings have to have the whole amenity, the whole facility. It would be just the household bookings. And the way Sean had the schedule working was swim lessons in the morning and then bookings in the afternoon, one after another. So we would try and find economies with our staffing so that we didn't have bookings in the pool right to the end of that day, and staff could be sent home early, those kinds of things. So he was trying to manage it based on the most efficient, optimal use of the schedule.
So our staffing, and I apologize because I'm hoping that this morning I won't have to ask so many questions this afternoon. So, but our staffing, what percentage are we at currently in relation to the modified service delivery we're offering right now?
So Councillor Mackay, your question is, what is the percentage of staff that we actually have employed in recreation parks now?
No, just in Fountain Park Pool specifically, only in the sense, I guess you could extend it out in the sense, I mean, obviously COVID has hit us, the shutdowns has hit us. I mean, we bring in seasonal staff, so obviously we don't have the opportunity to bring in as much. So potentially even having this offering would give us some opportunity to hire back some staff. I'm just wondering, like right now, like how many employees do you have working in Fountain Park that are either on the deck or are responsible for cleaning, are responsible for front of house kind of activities?
Sure. I'll start off and then I'll let Sean jump in. So from a Rec and Parks perspective, we have been managing our staffing since pandemic hit in terms of aligning to our service delivery. So we have 70 FTEs and we have about anywhere from 250 to 300 casual staff. it really is the casual staff that have been amazing in terms of flexing in terms of where the demand is and the need. So we only bring back the casual staff for our service delivery as required. And every time we close or shut down, it means a change to our staffing complement. So Sean, right now, when Fountain Park was open last week, what was the number of casual or staff in total you had working?
In total, and I'll give an approximate number if that's okay. I would say between the 3 casual complements we have, which are guest services, representatives, swimming instructors, and lifeguards, I'd say we had approximately 25 to 28 staff that had been brought back in March to help facilitate the reopen. And on top of that, we would have, of course, in a more isolated number, about 8 to 10 permanent staff that work out of Fountain Park at various times. And to narrow the scope further, at any one time, we may have between 5 to 8 staff working in the building for the delivery of all the different types of services that we have.
And so that wouldn't matter whether it was one-on-one swim classes or household bookings. We would require the same staff, basically.
That's right. Yeah, we have a very baseline number of staff we have to have on site for a multitude of reasons, not least of all, of course, the change in our cleaning regiment due to COVID. So you're correct. We didn't really have a change. We don't go up or down in terms of some of those frontline staff that we have to have at all times.
So I'm just, and this will be my last question, and this is more of a curious. So were the change rooms open to actual changing, or was it just onto the pool deck, no showers, or just showers on the pool deck?
So we followed the same procedure as we did last fall. So people came dressed onto the deck. There's a whole sort of new queuing that people do. And then as they exit the pool, they go through the change rooms and then out. Okay,
thank you. I appreciate the extra detail and thank you.
All right, any more questions from you, Natalie?
Yeah, this is a really optimistic question, but for our lesson and private bookings for the summertime in particular, is there an opportunity to kind of put into those agreements that if we get public swimming, if it's allowed, that your booking will go away and we'll offer public swimming instead, or less normal lessons? Is that being built in?
Yeah, so I'll jump in, and then again, Sean, jump in with more detail. So in general, what we've tried to do with household bookings again is keep the booking time window quite short, so that if public swim does come in, then it would be actually the household bookings. At first, we would look to implement public swimming in place of the household bookings. And then swim lessons are a little bit more of a challenge because you're committed to a certain window of time. And again, swim lessons are pretty popular in the summer. So we would manage the schedule around restrictions and being able to accommodate as much public swimming as we could.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, last but certainly not least, Woodland Skateboard Park.
Sorry, Mary, we actually had one more. We had one more slide to kind of tie this all up.
Oh, did we?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we wanted to just talk in a little bit in the larger context of all these operations together, and with respect to the $1 million of COVID funding. So as you can see from the previous slides, we've talked about anything we open and close while operating under COVID has revenue and expense impacts that are not typical of our normal operating conditions. So in some cases, our costs are lower as we had budgeted a higher service level than we're able to offer currently with ongoing health restrictions, such as Grosvenor Pool, which could have net savings up to $55,000 from what we budgeted for. In other cases, our costs are higher than we had budgeted for to offer service under the restrictions, which incurs additional costs and or has reduced revenues, such as the water park, where we noted it's actually got a net cost of $18,000 over budget. In the case of the household pool rentals at Fountain, this is another case where the costs are increased and the revenues are decreased, again, with the one household permitted at a time, which results in an increased cost to offer the service. So the rate chosen, as Diane mentioned, was the normal published pool rate, rental rate, in effect for COVID, and that was a subsidy of 20% for 1 hour, giving there are some efficiencies with the more bookings we have, up to a maximum of 5 each day on the weekends. So the services being offered are considered together, not individually. There are savings at Grosvenor, but deficits for household pool rentals in the water parks. So along with the many other services not discussed today, when the savings and deficits are collectively added up, which we hope nets out, taking savings on costs on some and increased costs on others, but in no case increasing established fees, any net overall loss of all these activities combined will be charged against the $1 million provided by council. So to be clear, in no case has administration upped a fee over the approved fee to offer a service, and there's no plans to do so in the future. We're only charging established and public fees. But to consider one activity independent of all the other moving parts, a situation that is still fluid and dynamic, as we saw on Friday with the hotspot declaration, and not forecasting for the remainder of the year. As an example, some of the EOC team will remain stood up after restrictions to document lessons learned and update emergency management plans and processes for continuous improvement to prepare for the next time our emergency management plans are invoked. So we have to look at the big picture for the rest of the year. So recent examples of emergent operating impacts include adding contracted security to the skate park just over a week ago to help with maintaining distancing of patrons. And in the next slide, we're going to talk about we may very well be incurring more costs on top of that. Staff costs over the weekend associated with implementing the direction of the province to comply with the health order for hotspots, which we were designated late Friday. So we had staff from multiple departments working through the weekend. So these type of costs have not been charged against the financials presented here today, nor have the revenue impacts related to rental space or advertising been accounted for. But the committee will be familiar with how we allocated that last year. So the request for COVID funding earlier this year, which was a continuation of the funding provided by council last year, was never intended for grants or subsidies from administration. It was intended to address lost revenues from customers, from leases, from advertising, etc., and increased operating costs for staffing, cleaning, contracted services, and signage to continue to provide services in the pandemic. So where administration has been given latitude by council in using the funds is when a stakeholder has been impacted by both the province and, with emphasis on and, by the city. That's the test to be applied. So in the case of the curling club, the city required them to complete upgrades to the refrigeration plant to meet current standards and best practices for public safety, as the city owns the building. They willingly undertook this request, but then couldn't pay for it in its entirety, as they were not allowed to curl by the province in the pandemic, which means they didn't have the revenues coming in that they needed to pay for that work. So that passes the test. In the case of household pool rentals, the rate and service offering is 100% attributable to the pandemic and resultant direction of the province, with 0% resulting from city needs, direction, or operations. So it does not pass the test. Of course, it is council's prerogative to use this funding for grants and subsidies, as is the case with the business incentive program and subsidizing household pool rentals if that is the will of council. But administration will not be using it for these purposes. We are using it for the ongoing and emergent incremental financial impacts of the pandemic on city operations. So prior to the emergent hotspot designation on Friday, administration is forecasting full utilization of the $1 million allocated by council by year end. But frankly, our confidence in the forecast gets lower each week with the new curveballs continually thrown at our operation with the protraction of the pandemic and the current third wave. So we continue in this atypical situation, and with the latest emergent issues over the past couple of weeks here, we actually need to go back and reforecast that information. So any questions or comments on that? I just wanted to be clear on what the $1 million is used for, because there seems to be some confusion with some of our stakeholders and in the community at the moment.
Kevin, the EOC payroll, is that 105,000? I mean, because everyone in EOC is already an employee of the city. So is that additional staff that we're hiring? Is it overtime? Or is it that we had to hire staff to backfill EOC personnel's role that they normally would be doing?
A little bit of all of that. So we've backfilled Percy's position in fire services. We have a contract employee in there right now, and from time to time there's some overtime, but right now our basic, I'll let Percy speak to it, we're running with a pretty minimal crew, but as things ramp up, sometimes we'll bring staff in for the short term to work in the EOC, but Percy can talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, it's as Kevin said, we have 3 people working kind of full time here in the EOC at this point in time. One's a contractor, another person's from comms that's being backfilled in the communication role as well, and also myself being backfilled here as well. There have been some other costs attributed to it, some of the increased health and safety costs across the organization. So pieces like that with doing site health and safety, field health and safety inspections have been attributed to those costs as well.
Thanks. Councillor Jolly, go ahead.
Thank you. Just start out, this is excellent information. I really like seeing the high level of what's happening with this response money. My question, I guess, is both to Mayor Herron and Mr. Scoville, is I would really like to see this same breakdown at the end of Q2. So just a request that I'm not convinced that we're going to be able to stay under that $1 million. So it would be, especially if the province keeps throwing these curveballs. So I would like to see this again in a couple of months. So that's my only comment.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Jolly. Well, that's the plan, is to report quarterly in a similar format as we were doing last year.
Yeah, I think that was committed when we approved this $1 million, I believe. Kevin, you've got janitorial and security on this list. So that's security for the skateboard park. And can you confirm with me if we added security to City Hall?
Yeah, it's for the skateboard park, and we already had some security in SAP when as a result of the pandemic. And I may defer to Carrie. It's my understanding we're bringing in additional security resources to SAP very shortly here.
Thank you for the question there. Yes, the additional security started on Saturday at SAP for 2 weeks.
Thank you for that. All right. The next slide, is that skateboard park?
Mayor Herron, we didn't actually have a slide for skateboard park, but we're happy to chat about it. I'll start off first with maybe just a sort of summary of where we are with the skateboard park.
Sorry, Diane. Sorry, Diane, before we get going, I understand that we also have our officer in charge of the RCMPs prepared to provide some comments, and perhaps Aaron Giesbrecht as well, but please lead it off, Diane.
Great, thanks, Kevin. I was going to mention that Aaron and Danielle are here and as well as RCMP answer any questions. So just a quick summary on the skateboard park. We did open the skateboard park on March 20th based on provincial guidelines. So users are expected to follow physical distancing. We did a very extensive signage campaign out there in terms of the importance of physical distancing and that to limit your stay so that others can enjoy the park. That signage was out there. And then we have had our Rec and Park staff have been doing daily, 5 days a week, they've been doing counts at the skateboard park. And it's really varied from, 2 people to 87 people is one of our highest counts that we've had. But again, it's a point in time head count. And then we did hire security staff on April 23rd to help to manage the numbers at the skateboard park. So I thought I would just sort of leave it there. And then, Kevin, I can turn it back to you if you'd like to have additional information provided by any of our other people on.
I'll leave it open to Ryan or Aaron if they would like to offer any comments or just be available for question and answer.
Yeah, Kevin, I can step in here real briefly. It's just my view that the skateboard park is, it's obviously a community issue, and you've got the non-compliance issues going on there, as well as some more recent issues that were raised around smoking and vaping. So I'll probably defer to Aaron on a blended enforcement strategy there. perhaps we can maybe discuss that in camera.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I think what I could add to council right now is the security that's at the site right now. Their main focus is really that education and breaking up any kind of distancing issues or gatherings that are occurring at some of the park benches and in and around the area. So they're constantly reminding the users about the rules of the skate park. If the rules aren't enforced, then they have been given the authority to tell people to leave the facility. And if people do not leave the facility, then municipal enforcement or RCMP resources could be brought in to enforce the Trespass Act. So that's essentially how that area is being handled right now. Security's there Monday through Friday in the evenings during the peak hours. And then all day on the weekends. And of course, that's weather dependent. If we have weather that's going to be really poor, well, we're going to cancel the security and try to save some money and some costs there. But generally speaking, they're there 7 days a week during those peak times. Municipal enforcement is still dropping in on the security staff and checking things out to have also a CPO presence there and that support as well. But their number of patrols have gone down since we have that more or less full-time security on site. Some of the information we've heard from the security is that there are some pockets of defiance by some of the age categories in that area, but they haven't been reporting that it's a widespread. So it's one of those things that we're monitoring and maybe meeting later on this week to discuss some options and other things that we can do to help increase compliance in that area. So with that, I guess that we'd open it up for any further questions that council would have.
Did we lose the mayor?
I think she's muted.
Sorry about that. So my first question is maybe for Percy. The provincial guidelines right now say we can have a max gathering outside of 10 people. Does that not apply to the skateboard park?
The province says that doesn't apply to the skateboard park in that perspective. The skateboard park is to be treated more as a park. So you can have gatherings of up to 10 or individuals, any kind of combination, provided they're maintaining that 2 meter physical distancing outdoors.
Okay. I do get that question asked a lot, so now I have the appropriate answer. I think it's also important to note that Alberta Health Services has reviewed our plan for the skateboard park and approves of it. Is that correct?
They have contacted us about the skateboard park, and they were aware of what they had actually received some complaints about the skateboard park. We apprised them of what we're doing with the skateboard park, and they closed the complaint based on the information we gave them.
Okay. And Aaron, the CPOs or community police officers still do not have the authority to enforce the provincial health orders, correct?
That's correct. We haven't invoked that for our CPOs, but they do have the ability to enforce the trespass and petty trespass acts. Mm-hmm. So that's currently how we're managing that at that location.
Okay, all right. And Ryan, the RCMP can enforce? Honestly, I'm just trying to get clarity for the public right now.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any of the health orders, they can take it.
Well, we would do it in partnership with Alberta Health Services, but yes, we have been deployed in that capacity in a number of communities across Alberta.
Okay, all right. Ken or Natalie, any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious. So what I understand is there's two issues happening at the skate park. One is people not physically distancing, and the other is people breaking the smoking bylaw. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Some more recent concerns were brought forward by the security staff that there's, pockets of patrons, I guess, that are smoking and vaping, and it's causing some concerns. I think there's a lot more parents and adults that are attending now, so I think it's becoming, it's being more discussed and more talked about.
Okay, and how many tickets have we issued for either of those things? Or is that part of the enforcement that we're doing right now?
That's really in the works right now as to what our strategy would be. But to date, I'm not aware of any tickets that have been issued under the smoking bylaw or the Provincial Youth Tobacco Use Act.
Or trespassing?
Or trespassing, yeah. No charges. We, in regards to trespassing, so that only happens, just a reminder, that only happens, a potential charge only gets laid if the person refuses to leave the premise. Mm-hmm. So if you tell the person to leave and then refuse to leave, that's where the violation occurs. In regards to the smoking, we're just recently been hearing about those issues. So we're going to be working with the security contractors on, how do we get the officers in there in a timely manner in order to issue tickets. The security officers don't have the ability to issue a charge under the bylaw or provincial laws, but our CPOs and our RCMP members do. So it's just a matter of how do we strategize to get that to happen, to assess the situation at the time.
Sorry, Natalie, I interrupted you. Keep going.
That's okay. And my last question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but we've had some questions from the public about why we don't use our own staff. So bringing back our casual staff, for example, to police these rules and call RCMP or ME when there's a problem. So can anyone comment about why we don't have our casual staff there?
I could jump in and start, and then Aaron or anyone, please jump in after. So we did have a conversation about that, if we would use our casual staff. In the past, sometimes our water park staff also kind of helped with first aid or whatever at the skate park. Based on the provincial guidelines and based on the need to really enforce the guidelines, we just didn't feel that our casual staff were trained to be able to respond in that way. Aaron, Percy, would you like to add additional comment on that?
I'll maybe jump into, it's also based on previous experience. For example, some of the challenges we faced with having staff trying to administer the restrictions at the outdoor rinks, for example, right? So.
Thank you. I have firsthand experience being that staff person, so, but I appreciate having it out in public. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councillor Mackay, any questions?
I just want to follow up with the inspector. The inspector, did you want to go in camera to discuss options, or was that just an availability?
No, just availability. I do have plans to probably meet later this afternoon with Aaron to discuss the matter. But just kind of in a closing comment is we can expect the same issues will surface with the farmers market. So it's monitoring these activities and these facilities day to day, week to week. It's moving targets, and the latest concerns coming out of the skate park are smoking. So I don't think it's going to be a difficult discussion to have on options we have to deal with it. So it's going to be an interesting summer at our rec facilities, I have no doubt.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, certainly in addition to the comments that have already been raised, this has become a very popular regional attraction as well. And so we're getting a great deal of interest from, what do you call them, patrons? I'll use your word, patrons, to utilize our park and probably not familiar with our smoking and vaping bylaws or other other than being common courtesy events. But anyways, I guess if we haven't issued any summonses or trespass warnings, we don't know what that breakdown would be. Would we, Aaron?
No, at this point, it's just the observations that we're hearing from the security guards. So we don't have exact numbers or statistics on any of that.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. I mean, the alternatives, I think, Mayor, you talked about this a couple of times. Obviously we had it fenced off. We had to bring the fences down a little earlier. I think if we put the fences back up, all we do is create a brand new jump for them, a new challenge that they'll take on. And also it just increases our security costs. And then the other one you were referring to, Mayor, like filling it with sand. Well, I think we should just flood it, and then we could have another outdoor activity, a pool that we could use for other things.
The water basin.
Yeah, water. Anyways, I'm obviously joking on that. This is a fantastic addition into our community, and this is certainly a road like a speed bump. But I trust administration, Aaron, and then RCMP to handle it.
All right, thank you. Ryan and Aaron, off the topic of recreation, do you mind if I ask you some enforcement questions? It's not really on the agenda, but it's probably more for Ryan than you, Aaron, because you can't enforce the provincial guidelines. But I know Natalie has heard from a resident, I have too, and more than one. They're calling RCMP at 11 o'clock at night saying, my neighbors are having a party, big party. And RCMP, to their credit, shows up every time, but no tickets are ever given to the homeowner, and then they repeat, and then they exit the premises and the party continues, and then they do it the next weekend. So this is frustrating for me as mayor to hear. So I'm just, if you can help me with your philosophy on how we stop this, because I've said to the residents, well, we could call bylaw and give them a noise bylaw because it's after 11 and they're loud. But I would prefer a health order enforcement. So Ryan, can you help me with that?
Well, I could certainly try. But again, we're getting into, a balanced response to the provincial restrictions. There's really no silver bullet in terms of how the RCMP or any law enforcement are responding to these types of community issues and calls for service complaints. We're really trying to lead through enforcement through education. So fortunately, so far since I've been here, if the police are ever called for an outdoor party or a gathering that is not within the provincial guidelines, there's typically we'll respond and people will understand that the police are getting called for these types of concerns, but in the few instances that I'm aware of is people are quick to respond to that. They'll disperse, they'll heed the warnings of the police, and there's never really any heavy pushback. It's when the pushback occurs is I think typically when the police are put in a position where they are going to respond with enforcement. So I have spoken with some of my colleagues in the Edmonton area, and they again are trying to lead through enforcement through education, and with the exception of your Grace Life Church type of scenarios, that seems to be working. Communities are go ahead, Councillor Jolie. Question.
Are you finished, Ryan?
Yeah, just just open for questions. But I was gonna, just to conclude, it's an education response that we're focusing on, and that seems to be meeting the needs of the community, unless you're hearing otherwise.
And I am hearing otherwise. So and actually this resident who has called me more than once, I've actually referred them to the policing committee as the avenue to maybe get in front of you and share their experiences, because I get it, knock on the door and say, please, you're breaking the rules, and it disperses. But when it's repeated by the same people, and I mean, this is a provincial wide conversation after the rodeo in Bowden, and you've got residents that are trying their hardest to follow the rules and staying home, and when they see people breaking the rules and not getting any consequences, they're struggling. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that would fall under flagrancy. So those one-offs should definitely be brought to a higher level of attention and concern through my department. So I'd be happy to take a closer look at that particular complaint from a citizen, because I agree, people are upset, people are frustrated. So when you've got, you know, kind of a repeat offender in the community that's acting out in that way, and I think really the only solution for that particular instance is enforcement. So
Yeah.
Please bring that to my attention in detail.
I'll follow up with at least the one resident I know in particular. I think we were all kind of hopeful on Thursday when the Premier was actually talking about more enforcement, and then we see a weekend of no enforcement. So anyway, that's more political than you need to be brought into. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I guess along those lines, what kind of education is happening? I mean, what kind of education is happening? We're a year into this. People know they're not supposed to have parties. So I'm really confused about how education plays into it. You know, like, yes, if you're caught, you'll go home, but you already knew that you weren't supposed to have that party, I would assume.
Yeah, I guess my comment to that would be, we're you know, I think the public expects that we're living in a black and white world, but we were just talking earlier about some of the perceptions or some of the rules that were unclear right around the skate park itself. So we are working within some blurred lines, even as law enforcement right now. So when I say education, I'm using wide strokes, obviously, but if we need to make an example out of somebody, it will be somebody that's really just not heeding our warning or responding to the police in that instance.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to throw out there, I don't envy our CMP right now. It's really a rock and a hard place. So thank you for kind of what you are doing in the community. It is appreciated, and it's tough. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor McKay, anything to add to that?
No, just I want to throw my support behind some of the comments the inspectors made. I mean, obviously my background is policing. You know, it's just more than just the police or municipal enforcement showing up and giving a ticket and expecting that you're going to get immediate compliance. You have a number of political motivations behind what is happening now, particularly as Councillor Jolie is putting it out that it's a 1 year in. You're going to start to see COVID fatigue. You're starting to see those people who are just frustrated and saying, you know, I'm going to move away. I guess the only comment I would add, and maybe get some clarification if there is any, is have we gotten any direction from the prosecution services in relation to, you know, laying a charge? I mean, certainly the police are only the gatekeepers. I mean, we have to gather all of the evidence. We have to then, you know, put it into the prosecutor's hands. And, you know, I'm certainly hearing in Edmonton that a number of the health order tickets that they've issued have actually been withdrawn for any number of different reasons. So, I mean, that only frustrates residents too, and it frustrates the police even more, believe me. So I don't know whether or not, Inspector, if we've gotten any direction specifically around enforcing these orders.
So excellent question, Councillor McKay, and I can tell you we're all waiting with bated breath to see how everything unfolds with the trial matter that's happening this week with Mr. Coates, because no special prosecutions, we're breaking new ground right now. So on the enforcement side, so special prosecutions, I don't think they have their recipe fully developed yet. So we are definitely keeping a close eye on the trial matter this week, because that will sort of set the tone going forward for all law enforcement agencies with regards to issuing fines and also arresting and charging people criminally that, for the more obvious cases out there of non-compliance and with businesses and facilities. So stay tuned.
All right, I see no more questions on this. Appreciate you guys allowing a little bit of leniency off topic there. We do have a conversation we need to do in camera. So can I have a member of the committee make a motion to move in camera to talk about the Rainmaker Rodeo? Councilor Jolly? Thanks.
Do we have wording that we want to use?
I don't think it was in our package, was it?
No.
No. Yeah, I don't know what sections of WIPE we're in. So.
Okay, that we.
I'd say third-party business matter, business interest. If Marta or
Here we go.
Ledge can come up with that one.
That the committee move in camera to discuss matters pursuant to section 24(1)(a) of the FOIP Act.
All right. Thanks. All in favor? All right, we are now in camera. Kevin, who do you want to remain on the call? Pretty much everyone?
Probably just Carrie and Percy, perhaps Marta.
Okay. Thanks to everyone else for joining us.
Would you guys like a breakout room because it's live streaming and there's a lag?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make one. You should all have an invite to a breakout room now.
So Tamara, we're back. Can we get the feed going again? All right, so Tamara, for records, Councillor Mackay made the motion to reconvene in public, and that was unanimous. And Councillor Jolly is going to make the motion to keep the conversation confidential. All those in favor of that motion? That's unanimous as well. All right, so that's the end of the agenda, unless, Kevin, you have anything else?
I would like Percy to let us know who is working over the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to say everybody who is working over the weekend, because there were a lot of people who stayed late on Friday dealing with the issues immediately there. Essentially, the recreation team, their recreation booking team, a lot of Diane's team was there on Friday. Comms was the communications team was available late on Friday night. So that, and it was just simply because the web pages are and all the communications that needed to go out. Also, there's different stakeholder liaisons, whether economic development, whether recreation, whether culture, who have all been involved. So it's a large team. It's not just a small team of individuals who was involved. So to give you the whole list of everybody, I don't have the list of everybody on the top of my head. I'm
assuming Marta had to put in some time on
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think from Councillor McBride, Councillor Jolly, and myself, and all of council, really. Thank you, Percy. Thank you, Diane, and your team. Thank you, Marta, for helping out, and comms especially. I did see Flo today. She was working late on Friday. Yeah, the website was really slow with them. So anyway, a huge kudos and appreciation from council. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this, and we'll see you guys at